The video opens mid-scene Jessi sitting on her couch, her phone buzzing with notifications. A friend sends her a livestream link from a huge music concert. She clicks, expecting music, and freezes. There's Jim, her husband, front row, leaning in to passionately kiss another woman under the spotlight. The crowd cheers. The camera zooms in. Her hand trembles. The livestream chat explodes with heart emojis and couple goals. Comments, but they have no idea she's watching. I always thought betrayal would come with warning signs, a shift in tone, late-night arguments, maybe a forgotten anniversary. But I never imagined it would arrive wrapped in music, bright stage lights, and a crowd's deafening cheer. It was a Thursday night. I was curled up on the couch in my living room, the soft hum of my electric heater filling the silence. Jim had told me 2 days ago that he'd be away for work, something about a client meeting in another city. I didn't question it. After 6 years of marriage, I thought I knew my husband well enough to believe him without hesitation. My phone buzzed, breaking the stillness. It was a message from my friend Mia. Jessi, are you watching this concert livestream? You might want to check it out. Now, at first, I was confused. Mia knew I wasn't the type to watch random concerts online, especially not on a work night. But something in her message, that subtle urgency, made me tap the link without thinking. The livestream opened instantly. The screen filled with a blinding flash of stage lights, camera pans, and screaming fans. My eyes adjusted, and there, standing in the front row near the stage, was a man I knew better than my own reflection. Jim. I blinked, thinking it might be a trick of the camera. Maybe it was just someone who looked like him. My heart began to pound, each beat louder than the last. The camera followed the crowd's energy, zooming in on the front row. And that's when I saw her, a tall woman with cascading waves of chestnut hair, wearing a deep red dress that seemed to drink in the spotlight. She was laughing, her hand brushing against Jim's arm like it belonged there. The music swelled, the singer held a long note, and in that perfectly timed moment Jim turned to her, cupped her face and kissed her. Not just a peck. A slow, deliberate, full kiss. The kind people in the crowd screamed for. The kind that made couples wrap their arms around each other. The kind that crushed my chest into shards. The comments on the livestream chat exploded. OMG couple goals. So cute. Who are they? She's gorgeous. Lucky guy. My fingers tightened around my phone until my knuckles ached. I could hear my own breathing, shallow, uneven, loud in my ears. My brain tried to scramble for excuses. Maybe it wasn't Jim. Maybe it was some kind of stage stunt. Maybe, but no. I knew that face, that posture, even the way his thumb brushed over her cheek as if she was the most precious thing in his life. I'd felt that touch once. I hadn't felt it in months. The music faded into the next song. Jim and the woman stayed close, her head resting on his shoulder as the crowd swayed. My vision blurred, my throat burned. Somewhere in the background of my mind, Mia's name lit up again in another message, but I didn't open it. I just sat there, frozen, as the world I had trusted crumbled in the span of a livestream. I don't know how long I sat there staring at my phone screen after the kiss. The concert kept going, the singer bouncing across the stage, the audience clapping and singing along, but in my living room, time felt stuck. The heater's hum seemed deafening now. My phone was still warm in my hand, the video still streaming. But my mind was miles away. I finally closed the livestream, but the image didn't leave me. It burned into the back of my eyelids every time I blinked. Jim's hand on her cheek, the crowd cheering, her red dress brushing against his shirt. I should've called him right then. I should've demanded answers. But a part of me, a quiet, frightened part, didn't want to hear whatever excuse he would come up with. Not yet. If I confronted him now, I knew he'd twist it, make it sound like I'd overreacted, and I'd be left wondering if I was the crazy one. So I did nothing. At least, nothing he would notice. Instead, I opened the livestream link again and found the replay function. My hands shook as I dragged the timeline back to the moment before the kiss. I watched it once, then twice, then again in slow motion. There was no mistaking it. The intimacy, the familiarity, the love. Mia called me this time. I hesitated, then answered. Jessi, I'm so sorry, she said immediately, her voice thick with sympathy. I didn't know how else to tell you. I didn't want you to see it from someone else's post. I swallowed hard. It's him, I whispered, almost hoping she'd disagree. There was silence on the other end. Then, yeah, it's him. After we hung up, I curled into the corner of the couch, pulling the blanket over my legs even though the room was warm. My mind ran circles, questions chasing questions. How long had this been going on? Who was she? Why a public concert, of all places? Did he want to be caught? At 1:13 a.m., I forced myself to stop replaying the video and put my phone on the table. I couldn't sleep. My body felt heavy, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the flash of stage lights and heard the crowd's cheer echo in my head. I made a decision. I wouldn't confront him when he came home. Not yet. I'd act like I didn't know. If there was one thing I had learned from every story I'd ever heard about betrayal, it was that you needed proof, solid, undeniable proof, before you faced the liar. Because I knew Jim, and Jim was good at lying. So I'd gather my evidence quietly, and when the time came, he wouldn't have anywhere to run. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd swallowed a fist-sized rock. My phone was still on the table, dark and silent, but I knew the video was still out there, replaying. For anyone who clicked the link, Jim had texted me around a.m. morning. Babe, busy day ahead. We'll call you tonight. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I typed, have a good day, and hit send. My fingers itched to write something else, something biting, something that would make him sweat, but not yet. After pouring myself a cup of coffee I didn't really want, I sat at the kitchen counter with my laptop. If I was going to play the part of the oblivious wife, I needed to do it while quietly peeling back the layers of whatever Jim had been hiding. First stop, the concert. I typed in the event name I'd glimpsed on the livestream banner and hit search. The performer was a rising indie pop singer who'd been touring for the past 3 months. As I scrolled through fan videos, my stomach twisted. Jim was in the background of more than one clip, always close to the same woman in the red dress. One post stopped me cold. Lila Morgan, violinist extraordinaire. The caption read, "Our queen with her mystery man at last night's show." There was Jim, his arm casually around her waist, both of them laughing. A quick search of her name pulled up dozens of glossy photos. Lila on stage with her violin, Lila at charity galas, Lila in elegant gowns with a glass of champagne in hand. She was beautiful in the kind of way that made strangers turn their heads, not just because of her looks, but because she seemed to own every room she entered. I clicked on her Instagram profile. My breath caught. There, tucked between photos of her concerts and rehearsals, were 2 that made my pulse spike. The first was a backstage shot, Jim standing beside her, slightly out of focus, like he wasn't meant to be the main subject but somehow still drew attention. The second was worse. A close-up of Lila holding a bouquet of roses, the reflection of a man handing them to her visible in the mirror behind her. I zoomed in. The jawline, the shirt. It was Jim. I leaned back, the kitchen chair creaking. This wasn't just a random concert fling. This was planned, regular, comfortable. And if Lila's tour schedule was public, then so were Jim's lies. I pulled up his recent business trips on my calendar and compared them with Lila's tour dates. My chest tightened with each match. Chicago, San Diego, New Orleans. Every trip he claimed was for work lined up perfectly with her performances. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a trail, and I was going to follow it. By the end of the week, I couldn't scroll through social media without stumbling on them. Jim and Lila. Lila and Jim. Hashtags like hashtag stage love, hashtag concert couple, and even hashtag goals floated under every picture. It wasn't just the kiss anymore. Fans had started digging. They posted side-by-side photos from different cities, pointing out matching bracelets, the way they looked at each other during shows, even the fact that Jim often carried her violin case like it was his sacred duty. What the fans didn't know, or maybe didn't care, was that he was married. To me, the humiliation wasn't confined to strangers online. It began to seep into my real life, like a slow, poisonous leak. At the grocery store, Mrs. Dalton from down the street gave me that pity smile, the kind that's half sympathy, half curiosity. When I dropped by the CAF where I usually worked on my laptop, the barista's cheerful "Hey Jessi" felt forced, her eyes darting away too quickly. But it was a lunch with two mutual friends, Anna and Claire, that gutted me. We met at a small restaurant downtown, and from the moment I arrived, I could feel something off. They were too careful with their words, too quick to change the subject whenever Jim's name came up. It hit me halfway through my salad. They knew. "How's Jim's trip?" Anna finally asked, her fork tracing idle patterns on her plate. "Busy," I replied evenly, meeting her gaze. "But you probably know that already." Her fork froze mid-air. Claire's eyes widened just enough to confirm my suspicion before she looked down at her soup. So, some of them had known. Maybe not the full details, but enough to sense that the man they toasted at my wedding was playing a role in someone else's love story now. And they hadn't said a word. That night, my mother called. She didn't mention the video directly, but her tone was thick with concern. "Jessica, sweetheart, whatever you do, don't do anything rash. Think this through. A marriage isn't something you just throw away over a mistake. A mistake." I bit down on my tongue until I tasted iron. "Okay, MOM, I murmured, though inside I wanted to scream that this wasn't a spilled glass of wine at dinner. This was a public, deliberate, ongoing betrayal. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time, my phone screen lighting up every few minutes with new tags, new posts, new reminders. If Jim thought this was going to crush me into silence, he was wrong. I wouldn't confront him in anger. I wouldn't let him see me break. But I would make sure that when the time came, I had more than just a video. I would have the whole story. And he wouldn't be able to talk his way out of it. 3 days after the concert, Jim finally came home. I heard his key in the door before I saw him, the familiar jingle that used to make my heart leap. Now, it just made my stomach tighten. "Hey babe." His voice rang through the hallway, casual and warm, as if he'd been away for a quick business trip and not 3 days of whatever he was doing with her. I stood in the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, wearing my softest sweater and a faint smile. I'd rehearsed my expression in the mirror earlier, not too cheerful, not too cold, just normal. He walked in carrying a shopping bag. "Brought you something." He placed it on the counter like a peace offering. Inside was a silk scarf, pale lavender, the kind he knew I liked. "Thanks," I said, running the fabric between my fingers. My voice stayed steady, though the sight of his face made my pulse thud in my ears. "How was the trip?" "Busy," he replied instantly, leaning against the counter. Meetings, and more meetings. "You know how it is," I nodded, slowly, studying him the way you study a stranger on the train. The faint scent of a perfume I didn't own clung to him, something sweet and expensive. His shirt was crisp, but there was a tiny tear in the stitching of his cuff, the kind that happens when you're moving quickly, maybe dancing. "Did you get a chance to see the concert?" I asked lightly, tilting my head. He shook his head. "Nah, didn't have time. Too much work." I took a slow sip of coffee to hide my smirk. He didn't even flinch. Not a blink, not a hesitation. "Oh," I said softly, setting the mug down. "That's too bad." I heard it was unforgettable. "Yeah," he smiled faintly, already pulling out his phone. "Maybe I'll catch the next one." If only he knew how much I already knew. For the rest of the evening, I played the role of the loving wife, asked about his meetings, laughed at his stories, even let him kiss me goodnight. But when his breathing deepened beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. He was comfortable lying to me, effortless even. And that meant this wasn't a slip, a mistake, or a heat of the moment thing. This was a choice, but so was mine. If he thought I'd just fade quietly into the background of his new love story, he was wrong. I was going to write my own ending, and it wouldn't have his name on it. The morning after Jim's return, I slipped out of bed before he woke up. The house was still, the pale light of dawn spilling through the blinds. I padded into the kitchen, not for coffee this time, but for my old leather notebook. It had been years since I'd used it, back when I was starting my photography business and jotting down client names and appointment details. Now it would have a new purpose, a record. Page 1. Concert livestream 8:42 p.m. Direct visual evidence of Kiss. Underneath, I noted the date, the performer's name, the location, and the link to the replay. Page 2. Tour date matches Chicago, San Diego, New Orleans, all aligned with business trips. I began adding timestamps, screenshots, anything I could quietly gather without arousing suspicion. Every photo, every article, every comment thread where they were spotted together, all saved. I didn't know yet exactly how I'd use it, but I knew this much. When I confronted him, I wanted to be untouchable. Next came the finances. Jim and I had a shared account for household expenses, but my photography income went into a separate account, thankfully one he never paid much attention to. I logged in and transferred a portion into an even newer account I'd opened online, under only my name. Small amounts, nothing flashy. The kind of transfers that wouldn't ping as suspicious unless he was looking closely. That afternoon, I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in months, Daniel. Daniel had been my closest friend in college, the one who always reminded me to keep a piece of my life just for myself, even in marriage. We'd drifted apart after Jim decided he didn't click with him, and I, in my foolish loyalty, let the friendship fade. When I texted, "Hey, long time. Coffee?" He replied within 5 minutes. Name the time and place. We met the next day at a little bookstore CAF downtown. The moment I saw him, a wave of familiarity and comfort hit me. He still had the same warm eyes, the same easy smile. You look different, he said, studying me over the rim of his mug. Different good or different bad? I asked. Different like you've been holding your breath for too long. I didn't tell him everything right then, but I told him enough. That things at home weren't what they seemed. That I was working on a plan. He didn't push, just nodded and told me he was there if I needed him. When I got home, Jim was in the living room, typing away on his laptop. He glanced up and smiled. Where've you been? Meeting an old friend, I said, my voice light. He didn't ask who. That night, as I slid into bed beside him, my notebook was tucked safely under a stack of blankets in the back of my closet. Piece by piece, step by step, I was building the kind of freedom you couldn't just walk out and buy. And soon, I'd be ready to use it. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. I was editing photos for a client when my phone buzzed with a notification from Mia. You need to see this. Now, she'd attached a link to a gossip blog, the kind that thrived on blurry celebrity sightings and whispered rumors. I tapped it, half expecting another concert picture. But this was different. The headline was blunt. Violinist Lyle Morgan's mystery man revealed, and it's not just the stage they're sharing. Below was a grainy still image, clearly pulled from hotel security footage. Lila, in a sleek coat, walking through a hotel lobby late at night. Beside her, unmistakable even in bad lighting, was Jim. He was carrying her violin case in one hand, a small overnight bag in the other. They weren't touching, but the familiarity in their body language was obvious, the easy closeness, the unspoken understanding. The article went on to say that multiple anonymous sources confirmed seeing them check in together, and that this wasn't the first time. Fans had apparently pieced together sightings from different cities, posting them in a private forum before someone leaked them publicly. By the time I reached the end of the article, the story had already spread to Twitter, Instagram, and even Facebook community pages. Screenshots of the hotel footage were everywhere. I sat back in my chair, my heart oddly steady. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, proof that went beyond a kiss, something undeniable to anyone who saw it. And now it wasn't just my secret. The whole world could see it. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote, hotel footage to 17 a.m. leak date, Wednesday, 14th. Another entry in my growing case. File.by evening, people I hadn't spoken to in years were messaging me. Some offered sympathy. Others sent the link without comment, as if maybe I hadn't seen it. And then there were the pitying looks in person, the kind you get when your pain has become entertainment. When I stepped into the grocery store, 2 women near the bread aisle went silent mid-conversation and quickly turned away. Jim didn't call me that day. By the next morning, my Instagram DMs were flooded with strangers saying things like, "You deserve better," and "Girl, leave him." The strange part, instead of feeling embarrassed, I felt something close to power. The narrative was shifting. For weeks, I'd been the woman quietly collecting proof in the shadows. Now, I was the wife the public was rallying around. Jim didn't know it yet, but the stage he'd chosen to humiliate me on had just become the same stage I could destroy him on. And I was going to make sure my performance was unforgettable. By the time Jim finally walked through the door that Friday night, the hotel footage had been dissected, maimed, and posted in a dozen relationship drama TikTok compilations. He tried to act normal. "Hey," he said, tossing his jacket onto the couch. His tone was casual, but his eyes flickered the kind of quick glance people give when they're scanning for damage. I smiled faintly. "Hey yourself. Long week?" "Yeah," he muttered, heading straight for the fridge. "Work's been complicated." I let the silence stretch while he poured himself a drink. I could almost see the gears in his head turning, trying to figure out how much I'd seen, how much I knew. That night, I didn't bring up the hotel footage. I didn't even mention Lila's name. Instead, I cooked his favorite dinner, asked about his projects, and laughed at his jokes. Every bit of kindness felt like slipping another stone into my own slingshot. Because here's the thing about control: the person who appears calm often has more of it than the one scrambling to explain themselves. The next morning, I opened my email and fired off messages to 3 potential clients. Photography bookings had slowed over the last year, partly because Jim's travel schedule made it hard to plan. But now, every new project felt like a brick in the wall I was building between us. That afternoon, I called Daniel. "Remember when you said you were there if I needed you?" I asked. "Yeah," he said without hesitation. "I need you." He didn't ask for details. Instead, he gave me the number of a lawyer he trusted, someone discreet, who specialized in complex divorces. I didn't call right away, but I saved the number under a fake name in my phone. Meanwhile, the internet was busy doing what it does best, turning private pain into public currency. People were now openly tagging me in posts about the strength of betrayed women and how to rise after heartbreak. At first it felt invasive, but then I realized every post, every comment, every stranger rooting for me was shaping the story in my favor. Jim hadn't said a word about the footage. Not one. Which meant either he thought I hadn't seen it, or he was too much of a coward to bring it up. Either way, his silence was my advantage. The man who thought he could humiliate me in the spotlight was about to learn that I could own that stage, too. But unlike him, I knew exactly when to make my entrance. And when I did, the whole audience would be watching. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I decided to pull my first public move. I didn't need a rant, a thread, or even a statement. Just one photo. I dressed in a soft cream sweater, my hair loose around my shoulders, and headed to the little CAF where Daniel and I had met weeks earlier. The morning light streamed through the window, golden and warm. I set my phone on the table, angled just right, and snapped the shot, me holding a cappuccino, smiling gently at something out of frame. The caption: "Here's to fresh starts and good company." No hashtags, no names, just enough air in the sentence for people to breathe their own assumptions into it. Within an hour, the post started climbing. Comments rolled in, supportive, curious, some openly wondering if I was finally leaving him. Friends DM'd me heart emojis. Even strangers who'd been following the hotel footage drama chimed in with things like, "Yes, Queen, and we love a soft rebrand." The kicker came 2 hours later, a notification that Lila herself had liked the photo. That was deliberate. It had to be. She wanted me to know she saw it. She wanted Jim to see it too. And in a strange way, I welcomed it. Because it meant she was watching me now. That evening, Jim came home earlier than usual. He tossed his keys onto the counter, looked at me, and said, "You've been busy on social media?" I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, just sharing a coffee photo." His jaw tightened ever so slightly. "People are talking." I shrugged. "People have been talking for weeks. Haven't you noticed?" It was the first time I'd directly challenged him since the concert. The air between us shifted, not explosive, not yet, but charged. He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, then closed it. Later, as he scrolled through his phone on the couch, I caught a glimpse of his screen, a news blog headline reading, "Is Jim Carter's wife hinting at a split?" His thumb hovered over the article before he locked the phone. Good. Let him wonder. Let him feel the uncertainty I'd been living in. The next morning, I checked my email and saw 2 new booking requests for photography sessions. My little fresh start post had done more than rattle Jim. It had reminded the world and me that I wasn't just somebody's wife. I was a person with my own story, my own work, my own voice. And now I was going to start using that voice not just in subtle captions, but in ways Jim couldn't ignore, because the final act was coming. And I wanted him front row when it happened. By Monday, I had made my decision. The quiet planning, the careful collection of evidence, the subtle public signals, it was all leading to one thing: my freedom. I sat in Daniel's car outside the law firm he had recommended. The building looked intimidating, sterile, like a place where secrets were exposed and fortunes shifted. I could feel my pulse quicken, but not with fear, with anticipation. Inside, the lawyer greeted me with a firm handshake and a calm, knowing smile. "Miss Carter, I've reviewed the materials you sent over. Everything looks solid. What's your goal?" "To end this," I said, my voice steady. "Cleanly, legally, and with control over my own life. I want to leave him, but not be left at his mercy." She nodded. "Good. Then we proceed quietly, strategically. We use the documentation, the livestream, the hotel footage, everything. And we do it in a way that leaves you untouchable." I left the office with a folder of copies and digital backups. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. I felt powerful. That night, Jim came home holding a bottle of wine, a small bouquet of white roses in his hand. "I thought we could have a quiet anniversary dinner," he said, smiling, completely unaware. I let him arrange the table, pour the wine, light the candles. I let him believe that everything was normal. I let him think I was still the same wife he had fooled for months. When the meal was over, I excused myself and returned with my laptop. He looked confused. "Just something I thought we could watch together," I said, sitting down across from him. The screen lit up with the livestream from the concert, the moment everyone had seen, frozen frame by frame. Jim's eyes widened slightly as he realized what was playing. I didn't say a word. I just watched him watch himself, the kiss, the crowd, the applause. Then I placed a thick envelope in front of him. The top sheet, divorce papers, signed and notarized. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Jessi. Watch," I said softly, smiling. "No arguments. No excuses. I've lived in your lies long enough." I stood, collecting my scarf and coat. "You'll read the rest. Everything is in there. And then you'll understand that the stage you chose to humiliate me on was mine all along. And I'm done." I walked out the door, leaving him frozen, the glow of the laptop reflecting off his horrified eyes. The first morning after leaving, I woke up to silence. No alarm, no coffee brewing, no Jim's half-hearted hums drifting from the kitchen. Just the sunlight spilling across my bedroom floor and the faint scent of fresh air from the open window. I stretched, feeling my body in a way I hadn't for months, free, unburdened, untethered. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't have to wonder who was lying to whom. I was the only person I needed to answer to. I spent the day setting up my studio for a new photo shoot. Clients I had secured during my little social media experiment started arriving, enthusiastic and excited. The energy was infectious. Every click of the camera shutter felt like reclaiming a piece of my soul that Jim had tried to smother. By mid-afternoon, Daniel stopped by with coffee. He didn't need to ask how I was. My smile said it all. "You look happy," he said, handing me a cup. "I feel alive," I replied. He nodded as if confirming what I already knew. And then he said something that made me pause. "You deserve this, Jessi. All of it." He wasn't just talking about freedom. He was talking about life. About the possibility of someone who would see me, truly see me, and never treat me as a second choice. Meanwhile, the online reactions to the divorce and the leaked footage continued. Comments poured in, ranging from shocked disbelief to loud cheers for my courage. Even Lila's fans seemed divided, some furious at Jim, others at me for daring to leave a man they still idolized. But none of it mattered. The world had watched my story unfold, and I had written the ending. At night, I stood by my window, looking out at the city lights. A message from my mother appeared. "Proud of you, Jessi." Finally, and for the first time, I didn't feel shame, guilt, or fear. I felt a quiet strength. I had survived the public humiliation, the lies and the betrayal. And now, the world was mine to step into fully, unapologetically, and on my own terms. Weeks passed and life settled into a rhythm I hadn't realized I'd been craving. My photography business flourished, attracting clients who appreciated not just my skill, but the passion I poured into every shot. Each frame I captured felt like a celebration of the person I had become: independent, strong, and unapologetically myself. One Saturday morning, I attended a gallery opening featuring some of my recent work. The walls were alive with colors, portraits, and landscapes, each one a testament to moments I had claimed as my own. Friends, old and new, congratulated me. Their smiles were genuine, their admiration untainted by pity. Daniel was there, of course, standing off to the side with his usual calm, supportive presence. I caught his eye and smiled. No words were needed. As I walked through the gallery, I felt a strange sense of closure. Jim's betrayal, once a gaping wound, was now a chapter of my past. I didn't need revenge, public humiliation, or validation from anyone, not even from him. I had reclaimed my narrative, my dignity, and my joy. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and rose. A soft breeze brushed my hair, carrying with it the quiet promise of new beginnings. I realized that life didn't have to be defined by someone else's choices or mistakes. It was mine fully, beautifully mine. I smiled, raising my glass to the horizon. To freedom, to strength, to the life I had chosen for myself. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that true love, the kind that didn't hide behind lies or stage lights, would find its way to me when the time was right. Until then, I was enough. More than enough. The city below shimmered like a sea of possibilities. I had survived betrayal, claimed my independence, and stepped into the next chapter of my life with courage and grace. The world was wide open, and I was ready to live it fully, and this time, I would never let anyone dim my light again. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment love, so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, spread love.